The Bite Me podcast is coming right up, and it is brought to you every week right here on YouTube by Freedom Boats. It is the best shallow running boat on the water, and there is a model perfect for you. The Chiquita 14, the Eagle 16, the Patriot 18, the Commander 21, the beautiful Warrior like I have 23, or the big boy that runs so shallow, the General 26. Chet Moore and Pooty can customize it however you'd like, and there's a dealer near you, whether it's the Boatyard in Kemah or dealerships in San Antonio, Beaumont, Corpus Christi, Port O'Connor, Houston, and Aransas Pass. Freedom Boats or freedomboatsusa.com. Howdy, y'all. Welcome into the Bite Me podcast, and it is time. We're back. Dean is not back, if you're wondering, but he will be probably next week or soon enough after that. But we got some really good stuff for you guys today. What the heck has happened with this weather over the last 10 days? It's just been cold and wet. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some really good rod conversation. I want to get with Captain Scott, who's right across from me, and Captain Caleb, who's right across from me on that, and a bunch of other stuff. Probably going to follow up a little bit on Louisiana. We're going to talk some gear otherwise as well, with baits, reels, and how it became the phenomenon that it has. We're going to actually go to the source on that. So pretty lively show for you guys today here on the Bite Me podcast. Of course, these particulars are always important. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. If you like it, if you love it, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Podbean is where you should start if you can, because you can get every episode we've ever done, and that's where we host it. But anywhere you get your podcast, iTunes, Spotify, everywhere else. And the group page has been popping. Got a couple of questions from there, as always. And we got more stuff for you going as well. But let's get started. Caleb, I'm going to start with you, man. What has been going on out there? Because it's been, I know Scott has some ideas on the water temps, and they seem to get pretty low. We're seeing some people catch some big fish, some fish in general, but some big fish. But what is this weather has just been ridiculous for us lately, man.
Man, these last week or 10 days or whatever we had, I just put the razor blade and the rope back in the drawer. I couldn't have done one more day of this stupid stuff. It's arguably worse. At least the snow came, and then like a day or two later, we chilled out. But rain and temperatures in the 20s and the 30s is absolutely uncalled for. Although the last 2 days has been fantastic. Fishing's been terrible, but
it has been. See, judging from Facebook, which of course is so reliable, there have been some people that have been catching some fish, but it's been bad.
Well, I don't know those people. I'm sure there's always somebody catches a fish somewhere, but everybody I've interacted with sounds like it's been pretty stinking slow.
Yeah.
We were talking about that the other day. Is that, well, the only thing that'll save yesterday and today was a warming trend. If we can get them up there warming up and feeling good, maybe they'll go to eating. But this, it's bluebird as heck out there. Great day to mow the grass if you can get around the mud puddles.
Yeah, it's been wet. I went for a jog yesterday and I made the mistake of laying down to stretch. Oh, I say jog, mostly walk. Mostly walk.
I can't picture you stretching, jogging, or walking.
No, I stretch all the time. No, that's
well, getting off the couch and
no, not that kind of stretching, man. I do them all. I'm like a sensei.
If you're rubbing your belly while you're doing it, that ain't a stretch, John.
Let's stretch a little bit. No, really. That's one thing I do. Of all the bad habits I have, I stretch all the time, and it keeps me young, man. Can't you tell?
Do you do the grunting Buddha?
I do all of them. I don't even know what they're called, but the heel to your chin and the yoga ones and all that. I do that all the time. I'm gonna have to do a video because you guys would be surprised. Not at how limber I am, but that I actually do it.
I'm already fighting to get those images out of my mind, so video isn't overly necessary.
Maybe I'll take my shirt off just to add a little bit to it. Take my shirt off, put some yoga pants on, do all my stretches.
John, break a hip.
Break a hip. I'm serious.
I'm seeing the skit on Saturday Night Live where Chris Farley ain't got a shirt on, just a bow tie.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll put a bow tie on and I'll do all my stretches for you. But anyway, I made the mistake of laying down and it was wet. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. We got like 9 days of rain. It was awful. But Scott, more from a technical aspect and anything else that you might have, because I know you seem to be a little bit worried about some of the water temps just staying down there.
They got pretty low there. It was surprisingly low. But of course, we didn't have any sunshine either. And that front was a little stronger than what they said.
Yeah.
They were talking about it coming in hard, and then they backed off of that pretty much. They were saying, yeah, we're going to be in the mid 30s. Hell, it froze here, and it didn't get above freezing until afternoon one day.
Yeah.
And the wind was blowing about 40, so that was chilling the water down pretty good. And the upper Lavaca Bay at one point was right at 32 degrees on water temperature. I don't know how that was going on, but yeah, it was like 28, 29 degrees air temperature and 32 on the water. It stayed, the little jetties at Port O'Connor got down to like 33, 34. I just turned around, it's warming up now. The sun came out. But the biggest problem with that front was, it just stayed windy the whole entire time. We didn't get that nice calm behind the front, sunshine and calm.
Right.
It just stayed overcast and windy for so long. So I had let that water get pretty chilled out.
What's your stretching regimen?
The truth.
I stretch the hell out of this shoulder.
I bet you do. I bet you do. So, big question, of course, what does it all mean? Have you guys been out at all? Have you been out at all, Scott?
No, I didn't go out in that mess.
Yeah.
I can't get up for that. And it just doesn't appeal anymore. Used to, I'd go ahead and dress up and let's go.
Yeah.
And the people that I talked to weren't doing a whole lot of good. And I just didn't see much reason to go put myself through that. Better days are coming.
The guys in the rivers and the canals, the only ones I know that caught fish. The people that went out in the bay, it wasn't that good for them.
I mean, at least we got some honest people here on the live YouTube stream, which, by the way, we record every Tuesday, 3:30. If you want to join us there. But, of course, this podcast posts about 6 o'clock every Tuesday as well on all the podcast platforms, as I talked about before. But Franklin was saying, I fished, I got skunked, it sucked. I think we got a lot of liars on Facebook, which, again, breaking news. So we'll see about that. So did Indian summer get us? Like the ever-present question of, what does it all mean? I'm not saying there's going to be a fish kill, but what did it affect?
Yeah,
I kept telling y'all that the winter wasn't over. Yeah, that was first fall spring, and now we're having second fall spring, and it's going to get cold again. I've been looking at some long-term stuff, and March is supposed to have some couple pretty good cold fronts.
The warm-ups past that last freeze were really good fishing, so that just means we get to do it again.
Yeah. If y'all talk to Dean, I got a text on my bat phone here on my home phone about Dean, and I've had a couple of conversations with him, but that dude, you talk about climbing the walls. Good gravy.
Hillman Carey called me this morning. Carey was giving him a ride so he could just ride around town and look out the window. I said, I do the same thing with Steve. What are y'all doing? Man, I just needed to get out. Carey's giving me a drive. I'm looking out the window, man.
I gotta see some sky.
Was he licking it?
We were talking about doing a video together, and he's like, man, you can get a couple of decent hours out of me, but then them painkillers get me all whacked out.
And I stiffed him this past weekend. I was going to go mow his yard, but it was so cold and wet. And I said, man, I don't know if I'm going down there. First of all, I was thinking about kayaking because my boat's not ready yet. And he goes, nah, don't come on down here. Grass hasn't grown anyway, so hopefully I'll get down there and do that. But it hasn't. I mean, to be fair, the grass hasn't grown. Have you talked to him, Scott?
Yeah, we talked off and on. I'd make that little run to Houston this weekend when my dad took a little tumble and ended up in the hospital. And I talked to him on the way down there, on the way back. He just mostly complaining about his back.
He's climbing the walls. He's absolutely climbing the walls, no doubt about it. I know I would. I'm climbing the walls, and I'm relatively healthy. I just want to get back out on the water. So none of us have been on the water in a long time, which is a good day to follow up on our Louisiana discussion from right before the fishing show. Excuse me. We talked about, and Caleb was deep diving into it. It was great, and it led to a couple of follow-up questions from myself actually, and some listeners as well. But they said let's get a little more specific. Let's go back to Louisiana real quick. Sorry, all my Louisiana friends, we're not going to give away too much, but a lot of people want to fish there, and it led to the question, Caleb, about all right. So I heard your discussion on Louisiana. Can you be a little more specific in terms of some places that we might want to dig in on? You know, like I want to go. I heard, I understand what you guys are talking about, but like one thing you mentioned, and I think you kind of started to talk about this, Caleb, is you're not really in Louisiana until you pass. What is it? That city, that town.
I mean, at least Lafayette.
Lafayette. So
At least Lafayette. Yeah.
all right. So when you go over there, and we have some people that want to start digging in a little bit and maybe expanding their horizons, they've done their bay, they know their bay. What would you tell them in terms of like, all right, this is probably the easiest entry point to start learning?
Man, I would say probably the easiest place to just go fish Louisiana and learn it is De La Croix.
Mm-hmm.
You launch out of Sweetwater and you just got thousands of square miles of marsh and ponds and 2 foot deep and 4 feet deep and 6 feet deep. There's not a ton you can hit. There are pipeline oil field channels there with old pipes here and there and wellheads here and there, but it's probably one of the least scary parts of Louisiana. The hope you have access to
they're all scary.
Yeah. Well, over there, a pipe's like one of the better things you can hit. But yeah, you have and you can you have access to the Hopedale Marsh, which that only has the big like 12-inch poles in the waterways, and most of the time the water's over them, so you don't hit them very hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. You start getting in Lafitte and West, you're gonna be dealing with the sheriff's department and the landowners and the hunting clubs and all that. Homa's pretty hard to get around in just because they've got pipes blocking off a ton of marsh and a lot of private water over there. To fish Homa, you kind of, if you've never been there, you kind of got to go out to the edges and fish the outside primarily. But if you want to get into marsh fishing, man, it hasn't been very good over the years. It might get better this year, but the Black Marsh right there above between Sabine and Calcasieu. But ever since the Sabine flooded real bad, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, that marsh hasn't been very good. And to be clear, De La Croix can be pretty seasonal as well. Yeah, Frank said the lagoons are full of stumps. If you go to the Hopedale Marsh, there's a lot of wood over there on that side. But yeah, no, De La Croix, you can kind of just go scatter about and it's one of the easier places.
So what do you recommend, Scott? I mean, other than obviously you better navigate right and do the research and maybe even Google Earth and all that stuff. But what do you recommend? A lot of people, want to expand their horizons.
Yeah, I've done a whole lot around Grand Isle, Fouchon. That was where I was guiding over there. I really like that area. It's a lot more open with a little bit of marsh. So you're doing a little more open water fishing. So you got to watch the weather. If you got any kind of west in the wind, it really messes that side up pretty good. I didn't really fish around Grand Isle so much, but I launched out of Fouchon mostly. Really good. I mean, there's some good stuff over there. The marsh that is there has got a lot of oyster, not a lot of pipes in that area. Not a whole lot to hit. Although I got to say, the only 2 times I've ever messed a lower unit up, all the running I've done in Texas, the only 2 times I've messed a lower unit up's been over there. And I don't even know what I hit. Camille was with
it just kind of spawns in.
Yeah, I just was running. I was running a channel where the crew boats run every day, right down the middle of the channel.
Still hit something.
Hit something and took out my lower unit. I've also done the marsh over on the boot, on the east side of the Mississippi. I did that with Captain Troy. We did that a couple of different times. We were supposed to go out to the Chandeliers with Chandelier Charters and Captain Troy. I think you met him.
Yeah.
Troy Mountain. He was at the fishing show this year, and we got blown out. We had a norther. It was like a October, November trip, and we went into that marsh and we fished it for 4 or 5 days with him and just absolutely smoked it. Had a hell of a good time over there. That's a lot of marsh to learn. I mean, I just barely scratched the surface. I got back and I looked at all the maps and started looking at Google Earth, and I was like, well, I saw about 1% of this.
This little bitty part right here is what I saw.
I did not see much, and this little 14-foot boat with a 15-horse motor on it, I didn't go very far. And Calcasieu, and I know a lot of people don't consider that truly getting into Louisiana fishing, but Calcasieu is kind of really similar to fishing Sabine. Same kind of setup. It's like an inland salt lake, and it's got marsh all around it. You just got to be really careful about that marsh because, like Caleb said, the sheriff's office and private landowners and all that, they've got posted signs everywhere, and it's really hard to figure out what part of the marsh you can actually go fish in.
That marsh in Calcasieu, especially the southwest side, it'll get shallow and full of shell on you real fast. I've avoided the law over there pretty good, but that's, they say everything in Louisiana is 2 foot deep with soft bottom, and that doesn't really ring true for that southwest marsh over there. And then the stuff on the east side, there was a blowout in the levee there, and it was pretty accessible, but I think they fixed that blowout, and now you have to have a boat that'll get through the weirs. And if you get through the weirs, then there's the used car lot underwater back there. So I don't even know if that's really an option anymore. Another good piece of advice is there's a lady that works at the Sweetwater Marina, and she looks like she just came off Hollywood Boulevard and really just sticks out. She just sticks out. She's out of place there. And you might think, oh, look at that, I want to talk to her. I bet she's sweet. Wrong. That's the meanest witch on the planet. Steer clear. Look, take one of them sneaky pictures to send your boys. Don't try to speak to it. She will eat your soul. Mean. That woman mean.
Well, explain you referenced it a couple of times, the fences and the private property and clubs and all that. Explain that for those who don't know. But James just texted. You sometimes have to log in that you're there with the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. How does that work? What do we need to know about that?
I've never logged into anything, but I think Napoleonic law is what Louisiana goes by, meaning that they are going back to the perimeters of land that people owned in the 1800s. And that has been sold on. And so they have deeds to the marsh, but they don't play by, the rest of the world's rules that if there's salt water on top of it, it's not theirs anymore. So it's all private. And then even the stuff that, especially the stuff more back this way, that's why I say I really don't like Homa or anything in that area, is if it's not patrolled by landowners, then Apache Oil, all kinds of different oil corporations have leases on it, and they're running you off. Because I guess I get it. If I hit one of their pipes and tore it up or hurt myself or something, maybe they're liable, and they just don't want you in there doing that. I can't think of any other reason why the oil company would care if you're in there. But there's always a set of eyes on you until you probably get past Lafitte. Somebody said something about Cocodrie earlier. Cocodrie is just a glorified version of Homa. You're south of Homa 20 miles, but guess what? 9 times out of 10, you're going to run back up to Lake Boudreaux anyway. It's kind of the same scenario. Just the thing about Cocodrie is I said something about fishing on the outside, and Cocodrie, it accesses that a bit better and has a hell of a better bar than Homa does.
Well, there you go. So, Scott, is this something that's just going to be there forever?
They tried to fix this here a little while back, and it got fought pretty hard and didn't pass. But yeah, it goes back to, I was looking at it one of the times when I was over there because I got run out of an area I really liked by 2 Cajun boys in a shotgun and carrying shotguns in a John boat.
Oh, Lord.
And, yeah. The thing is, they bluff you over there too. And I come to find out, I talked to the guy who actually was leasing it because he owns the convenience store there. I got talking to him about it. I said, yeah. He said, how was it today? And I told him I got run out of there. He goes, oh, man, them boys back at it again.
Oh,
that's
boy.
my area. He said, I lease that. He said, they ain't got no reason to be in there. and they were pig hunting back there on the levees, and I was apparently messing up their pig hunting or something by pulling through there, and they ran me out.
Different world, man.
Oh, it's a different country. I mean, it's all different. But what it is, I got to looking it up afterwards. There's, like Caleb was saying, the Napoleonic Law. It dates back to when they first surveyed it. What was navigable waterways is public. Well, navigable waterways in the 1800s, they didn't have a shallow sport. They didn't have a pole and skiff. So a navigable waterway was for steamships and the like, and it was for cargo. So that was a very small amount of the water over there.
Yeah.
They actually considered to be public water and open to commerce.
Yeah.
So it dates back to that. It's eased up a lot over the years, but there's one particular lake I go into over there that there's been so much erosion that the posted signs are 20 yards off the bank in this entire lake, all the way around it. And it is a posted sign every 50 yards all the way around there. And
man,
I mean, I hook a fish outside of it and he runs into the posted area. I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell you.
Oh, I know what to do with it, but I don't know what would be legal there. Can I chase my fish into there?
I'll go on the offensive because you learn to get an eye for it. They'll start putting towards you. They'll do something where they're closing distance, and as they're getting close, I'll say something like, "Hey man, I'm gonna be cool today, but these are private waters, and you ain't supposed to be in here. So y'all have fun today, but tomorrow it's gonna be a different story, and see what happens." I had one guy pull in on me. He was in like this 1942 16-foot. I mean, this thing was a piece of shit. And he comes putting in there and, "Hey man, this is private water. You need to get out of here." I looked at him. I said, "I don't think so."
I don't think so.
He said, "This is my place. I spend $250,000 a year on this." I said, "I think your boat be worth more than $3,500 if you were have that kind of money."
Yes, that's right.
Long story short, he rattled at me for probably about another 3 or 4 minutes and then put it off, go find somebody else to screw with.
Well, I got to tell you guys, between the posted signs and the private land and the stumps and the pipes and the shell and everything, you're not making this very attractive. You ain't making this very attractive. Why would we now sell it to us? Now sell it.
Okay, well, let me sell it. You ready?
Yeah.
You're about to hear my best pitch.
Blow me away.
Louisiana is a state that doesn't have much going for it, but it needs your money. It needs you to buy a $165 license. It needs you to spend $300 a night to stay there. It needs you to spend $100 a day to eat. It needs you to spend $200 a day in fuel. It needs you to spend $50 a day in bait. It needs you to go to its local shops and get your tackle and go to its local your local serviceman and get your lower unit repaired and get a new water pump. It needs you to pay your speeding tickets. And by doing that, you can fish about 1/10 of their water, and they're all going to be pissed off.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, and I'm Mr. Novice. I do Sabine and Calcasieu. So as you guys said, some people don't even consider that. So I've never really experienced what you guys are talking about. Scott, why would our listeners, why would I want to go there? Sell it. Or is it not worth it? You have to be like
the hell out of it over there. Yeah, the people are fun, not on the water. The people off the water are a lot of fun over on Grand Isle. And I mean, they have a damn Mardi Gras parade on Grand Isle. Yeah, every little town you go to has a Mardi Gras, and I was always over there during that period. And yeah, the folks at the grocery store and the convenience store and the restaurants, with the exception of one waitress at the Starfish restaurant.
You had one too?
Oh yeah. She's old, like 180, and she smokes cigarettes and puts them out just outside the door. She's walking back in to get your order, and she talks like she's been smoking cigarettes for 180 years. And she comes in, and she's like the waitress in the movie. I can't think of the name of it now. they're in a diner, and she walks up and says, "What don't you want?" We got steak and baked potato, and that's it. How do you want your steak cooked? And it's only cooked one way. Ain't nobody ever ordered it any other way. Well, that's her.
It's the Jeff Bridges movie where they're the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, the Rangers. And
what don't you want?
She is just like that. And I had a guy that was with me, and I kind of warned him about it, and he made an order. It was a big group. We had like 3 guides working with this one group, so we were all in there eating. And she came around, and I warned everybody, you know, and it doesn't matter how old you are. If you were going to order a beer in there, she's going to check your ID. One of my customers is in his 80s, and she checked his ID and called him son.
She didn't call him son. She said son.
Yeah, son. One of the guys made his order. You know, he messed around a little too long, was making his order. He was irritating her already. And then she went on to the next guy. And after he ordered, the first guy says, "Hey, man, that sounds really good. I think I might change my order." She just stared at him.
No, you're not. You can change it. You're getting the same thing.
And about 3 people later, he called her back and said he wanted to change it again. She says, You're getting a hamburger. And that wasn't even what he was ordering. He wasn't even close. She said, "You're getting a hamburger." And she scratched everything out and wrote hamburger. He said, "Can I at least get some cheese on it?" And she's like, "No. You're getting a hamburger and French fries."
Okay, but and I don't want to harp. I know a lot of people.
It's really cool. And the fish, the biggest thing is for me, it was the big bull reds up in shallow water. It's clear enough, and I mean, our customers are catching the biggest fish of their life on a fly. It's easy fly fishing. The fish are just, I mean, absolutely stupid. And you throw a fly in front of them, and they just come up there and eat it like koi in a pond.
Yeah,
and if they miss it, they turn around, they come back and eat it again. You know, you try to set the hook, and you miss, and you throw it back at them again. Whereas Texas redfish, you throw at them and you miss it like that, they change zip code.
They're gone.
Oh, the redfish over there are more pissed off they missed it than you are.
Now,
Louisiana
try to come back and kill it.
Yeah,
Louisiana's a lot like I don't think so, Jordan. Louisiana's a lot like Disneyland. It's there's some questionable characters involved, but damn it, the roller coaster is pretty fun.
It's worth the ride. Yeah. And of course, probably just to put a bow on this, best thing as always is get an experienced angler out there and get a guide, and then just start nosing around, man, and see what you see. That's how I learned Calcasieu, and it was not even that difficult, you know. It's fun to Louisiana, I guess. So none of our listeners are going to Louisiana anytime soon.
I mean, honestly, I had a blast over there. I'd go over there for 2 months at a time and have a really good time. But I stayed down there on Grand Isle. I didn't venture too far, and I just went to a little grocery store there and cooked my own meals. Because he's right, it does get expensive if you start eating out all the time. Even at the Starfish with the grumpy waitress, it was fairly expensive. But that was like the only restaurant that was really open in town during January and February.
That's the cool thing about Louisiana. You can get an Airbnb for, $100, $125 a night, stop at Rouse's, get some food. But and a lot of these places, Homa is kind of an exception to the rule, but a lot of these places where you go to fish, you're 30 miles from the nearest something to eat. In Delacroix, you're 25 miles to go get gas. I mean, you can buy it right there from the harbor, but I don't think anybody's got the budget in our listener crew to buy fuel there. You're out in the middle of nowhere. My favorite stay there ever was the first World Series. We got this little bitty RV, like an RV park, and we'd fish all day and then sit outside the RV and watch TV and barbecue every evening. I think you did
the podcast from there once.
Yeah, I did. I did. Yeah, remember how I told you I was on good ones and I couldn't be beat? Yeah, that was funny, right?
And I laughed. I'm always curious. Like how Texas boats are received there. Is there a little bit of
where I was? There wasn't anybody there. The only other boats there were Texas boats during January, February, March. It's the fly fishing guys going over there and fishing for these big bull reds. And most days it would just be me at the launch. And for 2 months, weekends, I might have 2 or 3 boats there. That was the other thing that was cool about it. It was cool, but it's kind of scary too, because when I did hit something and broke down out there,
what are you gonna do?
There ain't a whole lot of help, and nobody's coming.
Unless you're fishing a tournament, you have to work pretty hard to run into more than 2 or 3 boats, because the guides, I'm sure there's a couple of them, but the guides, for the most part, they don't go off in that shallow water and take their people fishing. They sit in deep spots and on points and stuff. You don't run past a whole lot of people. I will say this regarding Texas boats: Jeremy Compton has a metal boat right, and he gets run out of way less places than my white fiberglass one does. Like, they see that metal boat, they see that metal boat, like, oh, it won a bus ball. That he don't get messed with.
They see that JH, they're like, oh, you ain't from around here, are you, boy?
I was running through a set of flats a couple of months ago, and there's these 2 dudes, and they've got a boat pulled up to this little grass island. They're out of the boat, and they're flapping their arms like chickens at me. And I look over at them, and I said, man, looks like they're in a situation. And it kind of sucked to shut down, because when I shut down, I was sitting on bottom. But I went over there and shut down and was, hey, what do you need? What can I help you with? And they said, just letting you know, we're hunting here tomorrow, and don't you come close again.
Still not selling it. You're still not selling it.
Noted.
All right, so the Louisiana Fish and Game Chamber of Commerce. We'll move on now from. We're not exactly on the Chamber of Commerce, but it's awesome.
It's all part of the adventure.
Yeah. Just approach it as an adventure.
I mean, you can go sit in a perfectly legal deer blind and go hunting and have a good time. You can also sneak onto the neighbor's property dressed like a ninja with night vision, and that's arguably more fun. And that's kind of how Louisiana is.
Please don't do this. This is not the management of this podcast does not support or encourage anything that Caleb just said. Last thing, you talked about getting your lower unit, Scott. I did get an update. I sold my Warrior, and I said, make sure you fix everything up for the next purchaser. It was at the boat yard, et cetera, et cetera. So remember when I hit that old motor or whatever it was, block engine? Yeah, how could you forget? Over in Aransas Pass. So it bent the prop a little bit. Not bad. Got it fixed. Took it to the shop there in Aransas. They said everything's good. It was spinning, just fine. I drove it for another 6 or 8 months before I sold it. So I took it to the boat yard. I said, just check everything out. I don't want this guy to be stuck with something I didn't see or whatever. Well, he checked everything out. Prop shaft was twisted. It was just twisted straight. It was just all twisted up. So that's going to cut into a little bit of what I sold the prop for, sold the boat for. But oh well.
I've been called out in the comments. Frankly, says it's not that bad, and it is true. If you're east of Lafitte, they don't screw with you too bad. They don't. And Venice, people call Venice the red fishing capital of the world. I personally think it sucks, but Scott was talking about fishing that marsh east of the Mississippi, and you can absolutely, and look at the map. I'm not going to have to explain what I'm talking about, but the way the Mississippi dumps out the Southwest Pass, Southeast Pass, Northeast Pass, all around all of those and all up those edges and shorelines, you can troll your little heart out for days and see redfish and have a pretty good time. And if you follow the island chain that goes towards the Chandeliers in the summer to late summer, it is loaded down with tarpon. It's east of Lafitte ain't bad. West of Lafitte, y'all can suck it.
All right, let's do this real quick. This was and I recorded it previously just for full transparency here. I talked to Colin Zilich over at Sawgrass Rods, because Scott got this question and he forwarded it to me. With so many new rod makers, I'm wondering if y'all can discuss what separates them in quality, and if they come from the same blanks, is there really much difference other than artistic craftsmanship? I'm going to ask our guys that, but man, this was a fascinating discussion. And just spoiler alert real quick, he was so committed to answering this question, he was locked out of his office. So went to a bar at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning and was drinking a beer. So there's going to be some noise in the background here. But this is a fascinating discussion on some things you probably didn't know about rods. All right. That was really, really good. You guys will hear it if you're with us live. If you're with us,
my hand.
Go ahead. So, okay. So that's where we go from there. we heard him, terrific rod maker, terrific rod. Scott and I throw him almost exclusively these days. But you have a thought on this too. You heard you heard the question. What separates them? Same blanks. Is there really much that of a difference between rod makers?
I just want to point out what a rod maker story it is to be like, yeah, he locked himself out of the office and went to the bar.
Yeah,
I've been involved with a lot of rod
at
builders.
10 a.m. on Sunday.
And believe it or not, I didn't pay attention to any of the interview you just did. I heard none of it.
Yeah.
I guess I spaced out. I don't know.
Well, you'll hear it on the recorded spot.
I will point out. I hope he pointed out, but I will point out that a lot of people, I see this because I've been in the rod business a long time and in a deep way. And my favorite number one giggle is the guy on social media, too cool, whatever, saying, I know what blank you use. No, you don't. Most of these guys have proprietary blanks. They aren't all getting them from Batson. Next topic.
Yeah. And Scott, I thought, and you'll hear it on the replay when we record it. But one of the most fascinating things he said is that when you're looking at a high-end rod, some of them are just expensive and some of them are worth every penny. And he said one of the things that he looks at all the time is, how much of the epoxy is on each blank, each eye. Because a lot of people just slap a big chunk of epoxy on there and it weighs down the tip of the rod. Same thing with the painted eyes. He said, don't ever buy a rod anymore that has the painted eyes because that's the same thing. It'll weigh it down just a little bit. It was really, really cool. But your thoughts on, everybody wants to make some money. There's some real expensive rods, and there's some real expensive rods that aren't made the right way.
Yeah, like I said, it was pre-recorded, and I didn't get to hear what Colin said, but I talked to him all the time. In fact, I talked to him this morning. The dude knows rods. I mean, he's worked with Gary Loomis. He worked with TFO, and I'll defer to him on all of it. Whatever he said is probably true because he doesn't BS. And but yet you see a lot of the different rods, and I do the same thing he does. I kind of I look at the components really close, look at the quality of the cork. If it's a cork handle rod, real tight cork is a good giveaway for a good rod.
Quick, I didn't know that a lot of manufacturers pump air into the cork to make it a little lighter or whatever, but it's not really going to be as solid.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
You got that, and then you've got the big chunky cork, and that's the ones they'll start chunking off on you. As time goes on, it's just cheaper cork. They source it cheaper, and it's the difference between a really good hardwood plywood or chipboard.
Yeah,
it's kind of the same thing. So looking at all the little small parts and pieces is easier for somebody to look at and tell whether it's a really high quality rod or not. The blanks, like Caleb said, that there are so many blank manufacturers overseas. There's only a couple that are in the U.S. So when they start saying they have a U.S. U.S. made rod, it's a lot of times it's just assembled here. And it's got a lot of parts from all over the place. And then there's some of the companies, if they've got a high end line and a low end line, and they tout made in the U.S., that high end line is put together here, but that low end line is imported. But they don't really say that a lot of times. And a lot of the companies I've been around, and people get the idea, okay, well, it's a U.S. made rod. Well, that's their high end one. And they just didn't advertise that low end one's not.
Yeah, because they can get away with it that way.
Yeah, and those are just production rods, China made production rods with their same name, the company name slapped on it. That's one of the things I do like with Sawgrass. He is using American made parts, and as much as he can, anything that's made here, he sources it here, and including the blanks. Those are Gary Loomis blanks. It's Norfolk. I can't say Loomis because Shimano
it's
owns
Norfolk Composite. Yeah,
it's Norfolk Composites, but it's Gary Loomis is behind that company, and all that stuff is made here.
Yeah, there's quite a few coming to America. I guess the tariff thing, I don't know, but like what he was saying on the finish, a good custom rod, they put that finish on in layers, like thin layer, let it dry, thin layer, let it dry. It's usually 2 or 3 coats. The finish will go up underneath the rod foot really well, so the water can't get between the rod foot and the guide foot and the wrap. It's not hard to sit back and pick apart a rod. And like Scott was saying, the different grades of cork. I'm an EVA guy though. If it doesn't have EVA on it, I use a lot of cork rods, but my favorite stuff is all EVA. But yeah, Scott hit it pretty good. Some are worth the money, and some are just as expensive.
Yeah, no doubt. So we're talking about gear today, and obviously that goes to reels as well. Oh, we got a little announcement before we hear from Chris Kane over at Bates Reels. Caleb working his magic as he's wont to do. We were talking about Bates, which is another reel that I've been using a lot and love, and it's you'll hear me talking to him. It feels like Bates is kind of taking over the world here in at least a corner of the world with their reels. But Caleb, he's gonna offer all our listeners, no matter when you hear this, at your nearest retailer, 10% off. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll do 10% off at Anglers Anonymous.
At Anglers Anonymous.
If you order through Anglers Anonymous, we're going to throw you a code, Bite Me 10.
Yeah.
You get 10% off. So that's $35-$40 off of a reel. And we'll run it through it's the end of February. Let's just go to like March 31st with it. If you're a Bite Me listener and you want to get 10% off.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of people have been interested. And once I got a hold of one, obviously I loved it. So let's hear from Chris Kane, another really, really interesting gear discussion that a lot of our listeners are going to want to hear from Bates Reels. All right, so it was nice to have those two guys on. I meant to get to them. At the fishing show. You heard from a lot of our friends and partners at the fishing show. Collins was only there one day, and I missed him. And Bates, frankly, as I mentioned to him, was way damn busy. Like they were really, really busy. I kept wanting to go over there and say, I'm gonna talk to one of these guys, whether Buddy or Chris or whomever. And they were just selling like crazy. It from your perspective, we heard from him, but from your perspective, what got you sold on that a lot of our listeners are interested in?
Man, the reel, it feels good in my hands. It performs well. I gotta have. I prefer something that's really comfortable because that helps me sight cast all day. I'm more accurate if everything is hinging correctly in my hand. But the number one thing for me behind Bates is just the customer service and the way they stand behind their product. Buddy will straight up tell you, hey, if you don't like the reel you got from me, if something messed up with it, I either write you a check and buy it back from you or make it right. And Buddy means it. They were the number one selling reel in the show. I think they did $250,000 in 5 days. So that ought to speak volumes to how that company is catching on around here. But at the end of the day, just about any reel is going to have an issue. Shimano, Lew's, doesn't matter. I've used them all. They've all had issues. It's how big of a hassle is it to get the company to stand behind it? And I'm not saying Shimano won't. I've never had to ask them to fix anything because I got Anglers Anonymous to fix my stuff. But just the fact that this dude, whenever you get on social media, you can get directly a hold of Buddy and he'll make stuff right. I mean, to me, that's the selling point.
Yeah. All right, a couple more little things here before we get to what would Scott do and what would Caleb do. Go ahead, Scott.
One more little thing. Franklin said he needed to win the lottery so he could buy some decent rods. Well, just a little plug back for Sawgrass again. He took the inshore rods, and they're U.S. made inshore rods, and I've got a whole quiver of them. They're damn fine rods. They roll them right there in the shop, and he knocked them from $199.95 to $149.95, and that's a permanent price decrease that he's doing. And if you use my code SN24, then you get free shipping as well.
Look at what Bite Me's doing for people.
Those are some fine rods for $150.
Yeah,
I don't know how he's doing it. I don't know how he's making any money off of that.
All right,
just
so
the components.
So obviously we always have the Bite Me 20 for the Wade Wright belt, and they introduced a new product that was selling like crazy at the fishing show as well. Bite Me 10 for Bates reels. Sawgrass is SN24. You said?
Yep.
SN24 and price knocked down. This is what we do for you people, and we're happy to do it. All right, before we get to what would Scott do, what would Caleb do, we do just want to kind of let people be aware of things. It's happening right now, I think, Scott. From I think about this weekend until March 2nd. Need to get our listeners out on their boats, and because the crabbing season is closed and crab trap cleanup is on. I mean, that's something that I know you feel passionate about. And when I was in Sabine, man, I did a lot of this because it was ridiculous how many crab traps are just left.
Yeah. During this period, the crabbing is closed. They can't have any traps out there. So any traps that are there are considered trash. Throughout the rest of the year, even if you see a trap out there without a float on it and you know it's abandoned, you can't pick it up legally.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be a found property deal, and where you post it in the paper and to legally do it.
You don't want to do that.
It's Maine. So what they did quite a few years ago is they made this law where they close the crab season during this period, and any crab trap that is still out there in the bay is now considered trash.
Mm-hmm.
It's an abandoned trap, and abandoned traps are the reason they did it is because of ghost fishing. They've got, it's got bait in it. Something goes in there, the float comes off of it, and whatever went in there dies, and now it becomes a bait. And then something else goes in there to eat that, it dies and becomes bait. And they did some studies on it. It was astounding how much one trap would kill just in a matter of a few months before it completely deteriorated.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things was we've got the diamondback terrapins that are in our marsh, and they're real bad about getting in those traps when they wash up on the bank, and they're an endangered species. So that helped push that whole thing through.
Yeah. So all the way to March 2nd, which is Sunday, you get out on the water. Go ahead and do your part, because it's going to help. And we talk about it all the time. All right.
I can tell you too, if you start you find an area that's got a bunch of them, and you start putting on, it's going to be nasty.
Yeah.
But stomp them. Don't try to stack a whole bunch of them on there and take them back, because they take up so much room. What we always did, we'd always did it in airboats, and just go out there and stomp them flat, and you can load a whole bunch of them onto a boat when they're stomped flat.
Mm-hmm. Caleb, you got anything else?
You
had that look on your face. You get a look on your face every once in a while.
I would just kind of giggling to myself, because my buddy Jody that works for K Wiggler, he's like a Sanford and Son type individual, and he can't wait for the whole crab shack thing to go pick them all up, because 1 out of 50 might serve him a purpose.
Really?
And I was just giggling to myself how if he saw Scott stomping one flat, he'd just ruin his day.
This is gold. This is absolute gold. All right. So look, man, after all that weather, we talked about it earlier. We're looking pretty dang decent here, man. But you guys tell me, Thursday, Friday, into the weekend. I'm gonna start with Scott on this. I know he does his homework. And probably, are you good? First of all, you're going to go out, and what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty good. Temperatures in the 60s every day. I mean, daylight till dark, and after dark is around 60 degrees, 65 degrees is the highs. Winds less than 10 miles an hour. Sun shines out today. Water ought to be warming up the shallow areas. I wouldn't go poking around too far into back lakes. The water's still been a little bit low, but with the southeast breeze coming around, the water will slowly get back higher. Those fish, they bailed on this last cold front pretty far, so I wouldn't expect them to be in the far back lakes. I would concentrate on flats that are closer to drop-offs and deeper areas.
I'm telling you, Caleb, Friday, if you can knock off Friday, at least for my bay, lunch on the water. It looks like from 12 till about 3, you got incoming tide, you got light winds, you got falling barometric pressure, you got 63 degrees. I mean, dude, that's ice cream right there. If you can get off on Friday. But what are you saying? What would you do?
I think there's good fish to be caught. I think, like I said, me and Charlie and the cameras went out whenever it warmed back up off of this front. The freeze before this one, and man, the drifting was dang good. The river fishing was dang good. I'd fish deeper, 1/4 ounce jig head, plastic of some sort, hopping that sucker around. That's probably what I'd do. If you're a diehard, get up and wade that shallow stuff with everything warming up. But I think there's numbers of fish to be caught in any kind of deeper water.
Good stuff.
I just
all right.
thumbed all the way over to March 6th, next Thursday, and the highest wind that I saw at any point during that was 12.
I think also Scott and I are going to be in East Bernard at the San Bernard CCA banquet on Thursday night along with Compton and other characters that you guys may know. So if anybody's in the area, come hang out, drink a beer, buy a $600 BB gun.
A $600 BB gun. I got to see this.
I saw it happen. I seen it with my own eyes.
I got to see this BB gun. What
you
can
think?
you do?
You think that's big money? Scott went home with a metal custom smoke pit thing.
Yeah.
Oh, deep pockets over there.
How much you drop on that, Scott? He's not saying. He's not saying. Camille might be back there somewhere. I think Camille's hovering somewhere nearby.
I tried to buy a couple of guns, but they got a little rich for my blood. And those banquets are funny, man. There's sometimes you can get in there and you can steal something. It's usually a trip. The big trips, you can usually get those cheap. But the guns and the rods and reels and stuff,
supply and demand. There's a lot of demand for that.
There's a lot of alcohol consumed
There's a lot of alcohol consumed.
It's almost like it's by design.
Yeah, I wonder why. They serve alcohol at those things. We'll go figure. All right, that was fun. Good stuff. And man, really appreciate two experts hopping on here and not only giving us their knowledge, but giving us some deals for the listeners. And of course, Dean, I'm pretty sure we'll be back next week. He was pretty feisty texting today, which tells me he's feeling a little better. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
Oh,
yeah,
we'll call it feisty.
Yeah, feisty would be the right word. All right, you guys, man, really appreciate it. If you were with us live, don't forget to download the podcast because you'll hear those great interviews. And it was fascinating stuff that I thought I knew and I didn't know nearly as well. Thanks to those two fellas from Bates and Sawgrass. But you guys have a great week, man. And get back out on the water. I'm itching. This time I might go kayaking, and I really mean it. I won't leave Dean hanging like I did last time. Maybe even do his yard for a change. All right, boys.
He was so stoned, you could have just told him that you came.
That I did it. I could have told him I did it. Yeah. I missed you. You didn't see? I did the edging, everything. All right, guys. You guys have a great week, man. Get out on the water. Have a great weekend. Catch them up. We'll talk to you next time.
Man, I wish we could still say because that groundhog can kiss my